Spoiler ahead, you've been warned.
Somebody has to control you! You're killing people!
Okay, folks, now we are cooking. Mayfair Witches is best when it gathers its characters together, so as soon as I learned that Cover the Mirrors was centered around Rowan and Cortland hosting a family get-together, attendance mandatory on pain of enthrallment, I was locked in.
Can you come, please? It's my mom.
This was a good episode of television. There were twists and stakes and emotional beats and everything. There was also an introductory interlude with a curly-haired vampire. Those of you who watched Season 2 of Interview with the Vampire may recognize Felix, who befriends Lasher on a park bench and urges him to drop his human impulse to empathy. Unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss the potential crossover tease today because things are actually happening. With 3 relatives now dead, the Mayfairs know that something or someone is hunting them, and the above-board reason for Rowan's last-minute family reunion is a group protection spell. What the Mayfairs don't know is that Rowan's protection spell is a placebo, and they are essentially Lasher-bait. Lasher is attracted to Mayfairs by their smell, so how could he resist the combined aromas of 80-odd Mayfairs in one place? Nor do they know that Lasher is the aforementioned murderous predator. Perhaps my favorite part of this plan is that everyone keeps telling Rowan that, loose psycho killer or not, the Mayfairs won't go anywhere without the promise of an open bar and past apps. And even then, they'll probably be late. Well, yes, there will be cocktails and charcuterie, of course, Cortland tells some cousin on the phone. And Jojo brought crawfish beignets. And when free Prosecco, hors d'oeuvres, and a protection spell aren't enough of a draw, Cortland is also telling the relatives that Lasher, whom most of the family views as a sort of personal Jesus, will also be there and available for heart-to-hearts. This is a rogue move that does not thrill Rowan, but she is advised absolutely against telling anyone the truth about Lasher and her plans to kill him, or put him in a thrall. Whichever she finds most expedient in the moment, assuming she can do either, considering that her firepower appears on the fritz. This is no Scooby Gang, by the way. There are several problems within Rowan's inner circle. For one, nobody trusts Cortland because he's, disgusting. Dead-on agrees that Rowan shouldn't tell the family the truth about Lasher, but she hopes Rowan kills him brutally, like she did her sister. Yuck. Dolly Jean keeps her cards close to the vest and declines to tell Rowan even pertinent information until Rowan asks specific, direct questions like, "Where the fuck is Evelyn, and why is she screening your calls?" As for Jojo, Rowan drags her to the house without even telling her that Cortland, our father, is currently bopping around upstairs and not gathering dust in the basement, as Rowan promised her he would be. Amazingly, Jojo, arms full of crawfish beignets she got just because she knew Rowan doesn't know the Mayfair hosting rules, lets Rowan skate with a curt, "I trusted you" speech. Jojo is too good for this world, especially because that is not even the worst thing Rowan does to her in this episode. Rowan has dressed for the evening like an entry-level public relations assistant, working the door, and is frantically making sure every last third cousin once removed is present and accounted for in between bouts of strained small talk. But, unsurprisingly, Jojo isn't the only Mayfair who won't be in the same room as Cortland unless actively misled to be there. The rest of the family is growing increasingly bored in the parlor, but Evelyn Mayfair is still a no-show, despite Dolly Jean's repeated texts and voicemails. It is only at this point that Dolly Jean confesses that Evelyn probably won't come because Cortland is there and things happened between them. Well, this would have been helpful information to have about an hour ago, Dolly Jean. We don't get the details of these things, but I'm going to make an educated guess and say that they are gross and it's Cortland's fault. The place from which Evelyn ignores all of Dolly Jean's calls is actually her place of business, a bar, where she serves Lasher repeated pint glasses of milk. Weird, but okay, says Evelyn, who doesn't have time for this shit. I suggested in my last recap that Lasher's sexual influence over the Mayfair women he'd seduced and killed wasn't entirely natural. But if there is some kind of bewitchment going on in these encounters, Evelyn is entirely immune. I can be wrong. Perhaps it's the repeated milk orders that have turned her off, or maybe it's just Lasher's general twitchy-eyed vibe, but Evelyn is not into it. So, much like any other drunk at the bar, Lasher chooses not to hear Evelyn announce last call and instead grabs her arm and refuses to leave. I was genuinely worried that this was about to get problematic again, but Evelyn fights him off with an assist from her son, who almost dies when Lasher tries to choke him out. Also there to help is Alonso, whom Rowan has dispatched to pick up the unmanageable Evelyn, with instructions to tell her Cortland is definitely for sure 100% not at the house. Rowan has locked him in his father's room, which I guess she figures is basically the same thing. Side note, who is Alonso? Have we met him before? How did he make his way into Rowan's inner circle, and why did this happen off screen? But anyway, back to Rowan's party, which still isn't going great. She's not having much luck charming any of her cousins except for Daphne, who is a child grieving her mother. Meanwhile, nobody started this supposed protection spell. The beignets are getting cold, and there's no sign of their promised messiah, all of which is making the Mayfairs antsy. Making things worse is Moira and the cloud of hostility that constantly surrounds her. Obviously, Moira did not want to be at this shindig. Moira doesn't trust Rowan, and she wasn't sold on participating in whatever little self-serving side project Rowan has going on. But Albrecht Escher, mid-level Talamasca administrator and brain damage enthusiast, told her she had to. For justice. So Moira huffs and puffs and puts on her little floral sundress to go to Rowan's, but she lacks a bit of the finesse that the magic bureaucracy might have wanted in their double agent. Instead of playing it cool, Moira arrives and immediately starts acting like a pill. I'm sorry, I know, but I just call 'em like I see 'em. Trust me, if I were doing a feminist analysis of this show, I'd have a whole rant about depicting female protagonists as shrill divas whose correct opinions are just a nuisance to the overall plot. But that's not what we signed up for here, is it? So Moira shows up and immediately announces to the room, she is lying to us, everybody. Lasher isn't even here. And this is why she's nobody's favorite cousin. Her hand thus forced, Rowan drags Moira into a side room where she can bring her into the inner circle. This should have been obvious to an organization as shady as the Talamasca, but Moira is simply not cut out for the double agent life. She thinks, bless her, that Rowan should tell everyone the truth about Lasher and her plans to kill him. But Rowan, simply repeating what Mayfairs with way better track records than Moira for getting along with the family have told her, says she can't. And one last thing, Moira cannot under any circumstances tell SIP, i.e. the Talamasca, her plan because they will fuck everything up.